Welcome to The Real and the Woo. I'm your host, Lauri Stern. Join me as I invite experts and friends to discuss a range of topics from the factual and practical to the mystical and magical. Consider this your virtual happy hour filled with lively, authentic, and meaningful conversations meant to inform, inspire, and ignite your curiosity. Whether you are very real or super woo, this podcast is just for you. Welcome to The Real and the Woo. I'm your host, Lauri Stern, and I'm here with my guest and astrologer friend, Lisa Hagenbuch. I said that correctly, correct?
You did.
Okay. When I first met you, I thought it was completely different, but Hagenbuch. And I just have to tell you, so in preparation for this recording, I went back from 2023 when I first met you and reviewed my birth chart, the session that you and I had. And I was telling my daughter actually that I was doing that. And the fascinating thing, I was amazed. And I'm not like shocked because I know you now better and better. And I know that you're an intuitive astrologer. I'm not sure you quite say that out loud, but the information you gave me then, and I was writing notes, you saw me and then you gave me the recording and I listened to it back then. And I think I listened to it probably like a year ago. For whatever reason, I listened to it just prior to this week. And there's so many things that are happening now that I could never even have predicted would be happening now. So yes, I'm going to pause there and say thank you. And we'll get into that in a little bit. I'd like you to introduce yourself officially and tell the listeners, however you would like to describe yourself and what you do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I always really love to connect on podcasts, especially with people that I've, consider, met as clients and became friends. So I appreciate that. So my name is Lisa Hagenbuch. I've been a professional astrologer since 1998. I always say astrology is a rabbit hole. And the first session I ever had with a professional astrologer, I knew it's what I wanted to do. And I just kind of dove in. So my sessions, I think of the birth chart as like the closest thing you're ever going to get to your owner's manual for yourself.
Yes,
and because everything in your life is contained in the chart. I call myself an armchair psychologist. I don't have a psychology degree, but I'm very interested in the psyche and what motivates people and just helping people get into kind of the best vibrational situation that they can do so that they can attract what they desire into their life and take advantage of all the astrological interactions that occur over the course of their life. So started with astrology. I also do tarot. I am getting into some energy modalities, family constellations, and a new energy modality where I dialogue with the soul consciousness to clear up subconscious patterns. So I continue to it's called personal energy training. And it's a modality it's pretty new. I actually kind of know the man who developed it, and I was in the first training for it. And it pairs really well with what I do with astrology. I'm into, like you said, I feel I'm getting more intuitive. The more you interact with charts, you just automatically get more intuitive. Not psychic, but it does pair well with, I really like to help people understand themselves and their patterns. And oftentimes it comes through family patterns, generational patterns. So the more you shift that, the more you can take advantage of those dates that I give you for the year coming up.
That's great. So many nuggets in there that you just said. So the soul family planning, is that what you called it?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I do family constellations.
Oh, that's what I meant. Family constellations.
Yeah.
I've heard that phrase before. So can you describe what that means in terms of, maybe the definition of it? And then can you just describe that?
Yeah. And it's interesting because a friend of mine had told me about it years ago, and, constellations in the word, right, in the title. So I thought it had to do with astrology. So I was like, oh, I'll pair that somehow. it's not that. It's an energy modality. There's a show on Netflix. In fact, the season 2 just came out called Another Self. And it's the
I
first.
love that show. I think,
Okay.
Did I tell you to watch that show?
Oh, well, I'd heard about it from my teacher, Family Constellation teacher.
That show and the show The Gift. Have you seen The Gift?
Oh, yeah, I have seen The Gift. Yes.
It's
both from Turkey, right? Yes.
Yeah. And gorgeous people and gorgeous scenery. And I'm sold. And then I got into Turkish dramas like over the pandemic just because of those 2 shows.
Yeah, both of them very amazing. Yeah.
Mind-blowing and amazing and right up our alley.
Yeah, exactly. You might have mentioned it to me too.
I don't know. Just in the collective. So, we heard it from the air.
Yeah. And it's the first time I've ever seen it kind of demonstrated, and it's really best experienced. It's hard to describe a little bit, but it has to do with the generational or intergenerational patterns that are handed down from ancestors to descendants. So when Grandma Bertha doesn't solve an energetic issue that she has, it doesn't really die with her.
Right.
The system family, we're all in a family system, and it's always looking for wholeness. So that issue is wanting to be solved. And so a descendant will come in and say, oh, I'll take on that issue for Grandma and try to clear it for her. But then it ends up going kind of haywire because it's not the descendant's issue. So it's about kind of creating order and resolution in the family patterns that are passed down to us, which are contained in the birth chart as well. So I pair it with astrology because all your ancestors are in your chart somewhere. And your descendants,
I definitely
your children.
Want to circle back to that.
Sure. We could do a whole podcast on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we will. We'll see how this goes. And because I wanted to circle back to when we first met, you weren't into this work yet. So B, now that you are, of course, now I have to have a reading right away with you on that.
Yeah. And no, I was into it, but I didn't talk to you about it. But the personal energy training for sure I hadn't done. So
you weren't ready. That's all right. When you're ready, it comes out. You can't help it. It's just you get pushed and you're like, this is who I am now. And I'm out and proud about that. And that's what we do, right? We learn in our way. And then when we're ready to present, we present. And it's our own divine timing. It's our own readiness when we're ready to do that. But the C part is, everything you're saying is from my lens of yoga and energetic wellness through chakras.
Yeah.
So when you're saying family patterns, I'm hearing karma, family karmic patterns.
Right.
And it's that same idea where my teacher Rama will say, we come in with a template. Mm-hmm. And, you can imagine it sort of like it's got some cogs and wheels, and there's things that are filled into the template and things that are left blank. And maybe some of the cogs can't spin the right way because we don't have the correct pattern or oil or however you want to look at it. And so through the work that we do as individuals, some people will go to past life coaches or regression. Some people will do, the human design, which of course is all connected as well. And then when you look at Akashic record stuff, those people in that realm, they dig deeply into just what you're describing.
Yeah.
And so in that way, in your work so far with this one area, have you encountered or collaborated with people from other modalities to help you beef up your understanding of this constellation work? Or is it a standalone?
Well, it is a standalone. I pair it with astrology, and I do in a lot of family constellation facilities, they do group sessions where people are represented, representatives, like on the show, correct. I don't facilitate groups yet, but I do individuals, and I pair it with astrology. So, and I pair astrology with a number of different modalities because I believe astrology goes well with everything, including we talked about how it pairs with the chakras because the planets and the signs will rule everything in this world. So there are planets associated with the chakras, and then you can extrapolate the signs. So I have paired astrology with Akashic records. I pair astrology with a dear friend of mine who channels druids. So I feel like you can really, and I pair astrology with Qigong through the new and full moon ceremonies. And I pair that with a lot of things. The family constellation. And also I'm in the middle of a course on transgenerational astrology where you're really diving into 4 generations of patterns and families. So that's another rabbit hole you can go down.
Yeah, there's so many amazing rabbit holes. And I love, like you just said the word druid. Can you tell me, like in my mind, I go to Star Wars, like I think the druids look like the sand people, not the Ewoks, but the scary sand people. Like I think it's like the first one. Anyway, what are druids?
Well,
who are druids?
Who are druids? So I'm going to refer you to to my dear friend Catherine Flynn with a K. Catherine with a K. She has a company called The Channeled Source.
Okay.
And I have never personally seen a druid, although I've been in rooms with her and I'm like, where are they? And she points them out and I'm like, I can't see them. But they're essentially very tall, kind of cloaked figures. They're, to me, kind of the keeper of the wisdom back from ancient times. And I think part of her purpose is bringing their material back forward into, relating it to how we can learn from it in modern times. So my daughter actually does her social media. So she just posted some pictures of what druids look like. So if you go to Instagram, the Channeled Source, you'd be able to you'd be able to see what she sees. Cause I have no idea. Well, I've never seen one, unfortunately.
So so I just obviously painted them in a very negative light. And why would I have done that? Like what in our history up to now, because like we're talking, at least people in my world, we're talking galactics, Palladians, Arcturians, all that. I'm told I'm a designer blueprinter. So like, do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, I'm the shit. Like
well, we know that
apparently. Right. I'm apparently like the people that design the planet. And I came back here. We're going way woo right now. But I came back here because I have stake in the game. Like the way we're screwing up the planet, I designed it. And so everybody that's doing bad stuff to the planet, including me, like when I don't recycle properly and I drive a car with gas, we're human.
Right.
Yeah, there's certain levels of galactics and all that stuff. So the druids then, I don't know why in my mind they seem scary to me. Can you explain?
Probably because in the pictures they're very tall. They have cloaks on them. When they showed up for her, they just weren't speaking. They were just kind of and she's very tall, and she probably back in the day was a druid. So I think. Well, that's a whole nother tangent we could go down. But I think sometimes, including astrologers, we get painted as like being, I don't know, evil, witches, all of that. Witchy. And so probably the traditional religions wouldn't necessarily, because the druids are really talking more about like wisdom tenets, I think, versus dogma. Yeah. So I think maybe that's why there's a perception.
Yeah. Like in my mind, I'm thinking goblin. Right. But the way you were describing,
they're tall, very tall.
Right. But the way you're describing it sounds to me like what in my research and very limited amounts so far, but that to me seems like galactic, the guides of the light. And we've got the archangels and we've got, so many people helping us out.
Yes.
Thank goodness. And if we're lucky enough to sort of first recognize that we are not alone. And that's okay if there's people out there that believe in none of this, right?
Exactly, right. Everybody's on their own journey.
And I like the fact that you and I connect in terms of the work that I do too, isn't just a one-stop shop because there's so many multifaceted layers because we are multifaceted people.
Right.
And I would be a fool to assume that I can help people with one lane. Right. And some people want one lane, but I can't help but throw in other dribbles of magic in what I do too. Right. And that's why I love connecting with you because, all right, so let's do this. I know the reason you're here today is because when this podcast comes out, you will be telling us about what?
So we were going to talk about the lunar cycle, specifically the August full moon.
Yes. And that is what date is that happening?
That is happening on August. Sorry, I have both charts. August 19th.
Okay. Right. And this episode will come out the day before.
Okay. Great.
And so you and I had talked about going through my chart and just basically giving everybody out there a flavor of how you work and what you do. So I'm so excited because we haven't met before this. So I'm really open to receiving the information. And then you're so graciously offering little ways that we can honor that moon. Just a few simple ways, whether it's candles or crystals or affirmations. So I'm so grateful that you're doing this on the spot live, because that's how life is. That's the real part of it. We come vulnerable or we come seeking information. I know sometimes I have an agenda, like I just need some answers and I want them now. And then of course, when I look back from, 2023, I said that in the audio recording. I'm like, I just want to know now. And you're like, well,
there's a lot of
25.
Right. Well, I have, on the one hand, I have a tendency to work with the slower moving planets because I'm very much interested in helping people shift their consciousness. And the slower moving planets allow these windows of opportunities for you to do that over time. The moon, then now I've really more intently started working with the moon, which moves the quickest through the chart because the moon will go through your birth chart once a month and hit every point in it. And your chart overall is really set up to be a little impatient. So I get that.
That's one of those things where you say to me and I'm like, well, duh.
Right. It's just your nature. So
that's my nature. Yeah. And I wrote down, actually, before we get started, I wrote down, speaking of the moon, Lisa had told me that my chart is meant to play big. And one of the things you had said to me in our first reading was, I'm meant to expand. And I heard it on the audio when I listened to it. And I just know every time I keep coming back to that because you had said to me, well, you're meant to play big and you're meant to expand. I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that? And can I do it now? Right. And it's so hard to have the patience. And I recognize now in just the work I've done since then to have really the trust that there is a divine plan. And we do have free will, of course, and we make our own choices. But if we truly just like Carrie Underwood, Jesus take the wheel kind of idea, like just throw it up to source and stop paddling so hard against the flow and just let go of those oars and be in flow, life is just so much easier. And that's when the magic really is revealed because we're open to it, So but you had said my chart is also, I would benefit really from working with lunar cycles.
Yes.
And I had no idea other than like menstrual moon stuff in my life, how to really work with the lunar cycles for my particular persona, my particular chart, because you had said not everybody's chart is set up that way.
I think everyone can benefit working with the lunar cycle because it literally does get you in the flow of your life. Why I said that in some charts, like you, for example, were born very close to a new moon.
So was I born on the new moon?
You were born under the new moon phase. Yes.
Oh, okay. Then what is that?
So most people have heard of the full moon and most people probably have heard of the new moon too. So the moon, there are 8 distinct phases within the month of the lunar calendar, if you will, or the lunar phases. So the new moon is the start of a new cycle. So the sun and the moon are in what's called a conjunction, or they're at the exact same degree of an astrological sign during the new moon. And during the new moon phase is when we start to come up with our intentions of what we would like to. I use the word co-create versus manifestation, but you could substitute manifestation. But I like co-creation because I like to think of us working with the energies and not just trying to like receive from them. So, because when you co-create and you give as much as you receive, then the world is your oyster in terms of the universe giving you a magic wand to create what you want to create because you're doing it from you're trying to give and receive at the same time. So you start to come up with your intentions. So if you're whatever moon phase you are born under, it's very easy to just Google moon phase calculator and you can enter in your birth information, which So the birth information you need to run a birth chart is the date of birth, city of birth, and time of birth, or closest that you can get to the time of birth. So the new moon people are kind of the idea people.
Mm.
Like, I have this great idea. I might not necessarily, I might just, and I think we've talked about this, like I might get this great idea and I don't know that I'm going to see it through to completion. I don't even know if I'm going to start it, but I just have this idea of like what I want to create, what I want to manifest in my life. So it's a time when you start to gather that and think about working intently on something for over the next 30 days. Yeah. So this new moon that's connected to the August 19th full moon is August 4th. Mm-hmm. So you start to think about, write down your intentions, add to them in the next day or two. You're going to, in about a week later, we're going to hit the first quarter moon. Mm-hmm. And that is the time when you take really concrete, aggressive, assertive action on those intentions. You're really trying to get them going. And then about a week later, or about 2 weeks after the new moon, we're going to come to the full moon. And I always say that's kind of review of your science experiment of the intentions that you set. And you lean into what's working and you release back to the universe for another time, for divine timing, what isn't working. And then you really wrap up things at the third quarter moon, and then you kind of start the whole process over again.
So when you say wrap up at the third quarter moon, so I understand the new moon is when we set intentions. And I think you've even said, and I've heard for sure, the new moon is when we plant seeds, right?
Yes, so plant seeds.
In the yoga world, setting an intention, whether we set one every time we unroll our mat or when we meditate, the intention is that. And then the first quarter moon is kind of when they're germinating and growing.
Yes. And you really want to take action, like whatever you can do to empower that. And it doesn't even have to be, sometimes it's just kind of sitting back and meditating and just trying to, be in the allowing and surrendering. Yeah, visualizing, even sometimes just in the space of receiving, allowing, surrendering. So it doesn't seem very action oriented, but sometimes that can be its own action step.
And then the full moon is when we take stock of whatever we planted. How is it growing? And if it's not growing, release that, is what you said.
Right. It may not be the time. Mm-hmm.
And then the third quarter moon is when we're sort of like dealing with just the soil as it is again in preparation for another new moon.
Yeah, like tilling the soil to prepare it for the next. Yeah, exactly. So the planting analogy is great. I have a handout that kind of talks about the 8 phases. And so you can work on what's really nice to do is to take, you're probably going to get into this, but where you take the collective energies, plug them into your chart and see how to work with it more specifically. But you want to take like something kind of specific. That's why I also recommend keeping a journal so you can kind of look at what you've been working on. Because sometimes in a new moon phase, you're going back to kind of further a project you've started a while ago.
Right. And I was going to ask you about that, right? Because I journal every day. Mm-hmm. And so if I were to start another journal just for the moon, then that's a different sort of intention with that journal. And truly it's then like a log, I guess, of what my intention is, how I took action, what I need to weed out, what I need to smooth out, and then prepare for the next cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's great because
I like a dedicated journal for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never thought, so I'm going to start that for sure after this. And, we just had a full moon in my yoga classes, in thinking of you and the work that you do too. I like to remind them about the moon phase, but usually it's just the new moon and the full moon. And it was just recently. And I said, the full moon, it's not just we want to pull the weeds out. Right? How do we pull the weeds out? You can walk out into your garden and be really pissed off, like I get with thistle. I don't know if you've got thistle in your garden. That's the hurtful weeds. I call them the hurtful weeds. Mm-hmm. They're motherfuckers. They are. You can't get them out, first of all, because you pull one, it's like gray hair, and 16 more are still going to grow, right?
Right.
And we have a dog, and I don't want to kill other things around it. So the thistle is whatever. But when you're dealing with the energetics of it, I remind my students in classes and my clients, when you pull the weeds out, metaphorically, physically, and you do it with love and gratitude, and you seal the hole that you've created or the stump that you've left with a beautiful color glue in your mind, or again, just loving gratitude, and you send that out. That's quite different than being pissed off at whatever didn't grow and you've got too many weeds. So loving action in our daily work, I feel, is so important as well. And you ooze that, right? And without even talking about it, it's like just sitting with you is a reminder, just like you said, you work with the slower planets, and here I come like a jackrabbit, like, I want it now, I want it now. And you're like, well, Lauri, we're working with the slower planets. And you say it in such a nice, nurturing way that doesn't make me feel like an idiot. So thank you.
Well, I'm working on it. I have an Aries moon. I want everything now myself. So, patience is something, it's a lifelong virtue I'm trying to master. So I appreciate that. Maybe I can do it well for other people.
That's true. All right. So back to the chart then. What did you want to lay on me?
Oh, okay. And one of the things too, I wanted to say, we got a little sidetracked. The reason for you is you have a sun moon conjunction like all the time. So whatever, from a core level, whatever you're wanting to co-create in the universe, it's tied to the creation of it, is tied to the lunar aspects and the receiving and balancing. So that's one of the reasons why for you, but also the moon rules your career house. So it is, and life purpose and public arena. So there are some charts that are really more highlighted with the moon. And so what I think I'd like to go back and talk about the new moon and how it was affecting your chart, and then bring it into the full moon. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, because
lay it on me.
Yes, because okay. So the August new moon. And just to kind of describe to people what I'm doing. So I cast a chart every month for the new moon and the full moon. I cast it for the Chicago area because that's where I live and that's where you are too. So we can talk about those energies and how they're interacting with each other. And then what I specifically do is each of the new and the full moons are in an astrological sign and degree. And so I take that. And so for a new moon, you've got the sun and the moon at the same degree, essentially. So then I take that degree and I plug it into Lauri's individual natal chart and say, for you, this is how you are being affected by the collective lunar energy in terms of the house. And the house in astrology is the life area. And then also, is it interacting with any other planets in your chart, either directly opposing it or squaring it? So just that alone is kind of often enough to say, okay, that gives you an idea of maybe for this new moon, I could set my intentions. Like for you, the new moon is in the 10th house, which is that career, life purpose, most public arena. So focusing on furthering your career path, your life purpose. Maybe there's an idea for something new you want to bring in. Like we were talking about that earlier.
Right.
And
well, this podcast is new, right? And that was
that's true.
Supposed to be happening now based on our conversation in 2023.
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't, podcasting wasn't even in my life then. So that's the crazy thing. I wasn't even listening to any. So that's fascinating. Yeah. And then you had described too, just so people know, the charts are mutable. They're not fixed, but the houses are fixed. Everybody's got the same 12 houses, right? There's 12.
Yeah. So everybody, yes, there are so I do Western astrology. In Western astrology, there are 12 houses. So everybody is going to have a house. They're not all going to they're going to mean the same thing. Some houses are larger than others that gets into more individual. So, but
basically it's the same pizza in 12 slices.
It's the same.
And then
It's
how the
300
pizza sort of spins around the lazy Susan. We get a different bite every cycle.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah, that's a really good way to say it. Yes. So that, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So the astrological wheel is 360 degrees, and it is divided into 12 slices of pizza, if you will, meaning 12 signs that are 30 degrees each, and they follow in a certain order around the wheel.
So I have a question right there.
Yes.
So we know that there's 12 houses.
Yes.
And we know that there's 12 zodiac signs.
Yes.
Do they coincide, or the zodiac signs kind of move around the houses, even though there's the same number of them? They don't have anything to do with each other in terms of alignment, or am I wrong about that?
In terms of what everybody experiences, is that what you mean?
Well, so like, it's I know the first house is fixed in terms of what the house is.
Yes.
But like my Aries isn't always in the first house, or my Gemini isn't always in the second house. Okay.
Correct. So there's a natural wheel of the zodiac.
Moves around a wheel independently of the fixed pizza.
Yes. So in the natural wheel of astrology, you would have Aries on the first house cusp, and you would have Pisces on the 12th.
Okay.
And so the reason why it's different is because of the latitude, longitude of where you were born.
Right.
Is going to determine the division of those houses. We won't even get into it, but there's the house system that I use. It's not divided into 30 degrees of neat little compartments around the chart.
Right. So I see that on mine.
Some houses are bigger than others. So that means a planet will stay in when the planets move through the chart, and they move through the astrological signs, which are fixed in your individual natal chart. Mm-hmm. So that means in a house that's bigger, you're going to have that planet in that area of your life for a longer period of time.
Gotcha.
That makes sense. Okay. So for you, this new moon on August 4th was in your 10th house. So, okay. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So right away, even if we just say, okay, let's set intentions for furthering what is going on in your work arena, your career arena, what feels purposeful to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That alone is really great information to know.
Right.
And so then it's interesting. It's not interacting in a significant way with any of the planets for you, but there are some key points in your chart. I always include, there are Arabic parts, that's a whole nother discussion, but I put in the part of fortune and the part of fate. So This new moon is in a square, which means like really take more concrete action with the part of fate. So if there is anything in your work arena that you have experienced as like, this just kind of dropped into my lap, or this was like an encounter I had with somebody that seemed like out of the blue or kind of meant to be, maybe work with that a little bit more, because there's an element of fate involved in that you can take some concrete action on for this month. And it is also, the new moon was also in an opportunity aspect to your part of fortune and the north node of your moon. Oh, and also it was sextile your sun. So this is a really lovely new moon for you. You can take advantage of a lot of things.
And so the sextile, like just to define terms, right? So square, you said is when you, right.
Square. Okay. So the aspects are planetary conversations. Squares.
That's what you said, right.
Yeah. So squares they propel you into action on something. They may come with some frustrations because it's a little bit more of a conflict type of conversation. But on a positive note, if you want to really further your efforts in an area, take advantage of the squares. You need squares to get things going.
Well, we can't have a building without a straight square, right?
Right, exactly. Right,
there's 4 sides to a square. There's 4 seasons. There's 4, there's so many things with squares.
Right.
And it's funny. I like the way you said sometimes it can be hard because if you think about a square, it's not going anywhere. It's always going to be a square.
Right.
It's not anything else. So I like that you can see it in two different ways,
Yeah.
All right.
I kind of my view is there's always a harmonious use and there's always like a shadow. I call it a shadow side use. We all have that duality in everything, so it's just kind of putting a little bit of a positive spin on it to say, okay. Yeah.
I just want to interject because I just got the chills when you said that. And I always ask my guests, or I've been asking them lately, if you had to guess what someone would say is your superpower, what do you think someone would say is your superpower?
Is my superpower? I'm a really good listener, I think.
Yeah. When you just started talking, though, I wanted to say, I agree with that, of course. And also, we bear such a responsibility as healers to act from a place of integrity and honesty. And we have a choice in that work of scaring the shit out of people and making them so fearful that they can never connect with any other teacher or healer. Like, I can only see you for this. I can't see anybody else. But you're not like that. And you just painted that same picture. You've got a choice of how you describe these energies, which way more than the average bear. And there's really scary stuff going on. And we could go down that rabbit hole. But I love that you elevate the consciousness and make this digestible and easy to understand, and also accessible in our heart space, because you don't come at it with fear. And I just really want to acknowledge, to me, that is a really superpower. And so thank you for that. And I just got you off track as you were describing the squares, you're describing the aspects. So go ahead. But I just wanted to say, there's a lot of people that do this work and they don't do it so kindly. So thank you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, So, and that's really evolved for a Capricorn, I must say. I'm a Capricorn. So we usually will come from fear. So I've been working on that. But I just really think, you may as well see it with a glass half full. Yeah. It's the way you're going to attract something. Days. Yeah.
All right. So the square, and then I know you were talking about the conjunction, and there's trines and anything else that you want to define as you go.
Yeah. So then for you, you have a sextile, which is an opportunity conversation. So looking out for fortunate opportunities. And this is a really great time when the new moon for you is, if you were thinking about reaching out to someone to see if they want to partner on something, or could I do, are you looking for a yoga teacher? Are you, this is a great month for you to do it, because the universe is wanting to work with you and getting you in flow with these opportunities for your soul purpose and your life direction.
So here's when I get to say, Lenny Kravitz, if you're listening, I want to be your yoga instructor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dream big.
And sing with you too. And Stevie Nicks as well. I'll throw her into the mix.
One of my faves. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we did talk about the fact that you have this strong vocal presence in your chart. So I would second that, Stevie, and then I could be Stevie's astrologer. So I'd appreciate that.
There you go. All right. We'll just go together.
We'll dream big. Okay.
That's right. All right. So that's my new moon. I'm going to plant those seeds.
Yes. Okay. So then do you want to pivot to the full moon? Because that's what's going to tomorrow, when this comes out. So the full moon, August 19th, is at the moon is at 27 Aquarius.
Okay.
Now, in a full moon, the sun and the moon are at exactly opposite degrees. So that means the sun is at 27 degrees of Leo. Mm-hmm. So in astrology, there's polarities and they become really important. And so your full moon happens to reside in your fifth house, which is the house of children, play, because it's Leo's natural domain, personal creativity, risk-taking, self-love. It's the house of dating too. I know you're married, but it's also the house of like when we date before we get married. So
self-love, to interject really quickly, self-love is self-dating, right? We don't date ourselves. We talked about this. I was doing the Artist Way when we first met, and they have a whole exercise in there. Take yourself out for a date, like make a date once a week to play. And that's just what you're describing right here. So maybe I'll do that in the full moon.
I say this to people all the time. We forget to play, we just, as we play as children, and then we grow up and we forget to play, and keeping that alive really helps us to be in flow in our lives and create and manifest and all of that. So, and for you, it is also in a square as conversation to your Mercury. Now, for you, your Mercury is so important because it's the ruler of all the Gemini that you have in your chart. But Mercury is also the planet of communication, mental processing in all forms. So when you're speaking, you're writing, your mental processing, all of that. And it's also the messenger. And I have to say for people that I am one of those astrologers. And again, speaking to not getting into fear.
Yeah.
Mercury was, and the new moon, it was in a stationary about to go retrograde. And that can be I don't freak out about Mercury retrogrades. I oftentimes don't even know when they are. I don't pay attention to them. I don't give them any power. Yeah. Some people do. And some people are really affected by them. And I don't know which came first, chicken or egg, but the new moon can also be a time to go back and review communication on any level, review a contract. If you were in a disagreement with somebody, maybe you can make amends during this time period. So I want to kind of go back to that because for you, it's really kind of highlighted in this whole cycle for you, and really important planet for you in general.
Okay.
And then this full moon is also in a wide trine, which is a luck aspect to your Venus.
I'm your Venus.
Right.
And so what does my Venus do for me?
So your Venus, Venus in general is the feminine, it's love and money, it's resources. For you, at this point, Venus is the ruler of Taurus and Libra. You have a Libra personality sign or ascendant sign. So that becomes...
I thought Libra was my rising, no?
Yeah, that rising ascendant sign. Yeah. So Venus rules that Libra. So the relationship arena can get really highlighted in this as well. So partnering, for example, if there was, I think we were talking about if there were people you wanted to partner with in terms of like Lenny Kravitz, for example, or a business or anything like that.
Closer to home,
Yeah, exactly. So again, keep, whatever's started on the new moon, whatever's working well. I don't think of it as either like we have to just release things on the full moon and we have to just set our intentions, don't play with it a little bit and see like what's alive in your life, what's working well. And on the full moon, you can go further into it for 15 days,
Right. I mean, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So things that are planted in the new moon, not everything needs to go, right? I'm hoping to be planting crops. I might rotate them, but they're there, right?
Yes.
And so, yes, collaboration. I meant to collaborate with others. And just the other day, this profound conversation I was having with, I told you, Terry, from a numerology standpoint, this whole time when you and she had said I meant to collaborate with others based on my chart, I kept thinking others. And really it's collaboration with spirit, collaboration with source, and how I'm, opening up my clairs and my intuition. Yes. And, instead of looking out from me to say, are you my teacher? And are you the person who's going to, collaborate with me? It's no, I need to collaborate within myself and my spirit team
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's druids in there.
Yeah, you never know.
But again, like that's a whole different aspect of collaboration that just makes my heart it just feels so warm when I say it. So I know it's true. But yeah, outwardly collaborating there's lots of fabulous things happening in our community with groups forming and retreat ideas. And I'm part of that. And I'm just watching some of it. It's all the same energy. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
People like you coming on here. But yeah, just doing the internal, like you said, play with myself,
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Date myself and just really dig into collaborating with my sense of source.
Probably the wisest thing ever said to me from an astrologer was the most important relationship you're ever going to have is with yourself. And so shoring that up every day, and that really highlights the fifth house. We've got a lot of Leo energy with both of these moons. So just that co-creation within yourself, your divine feminine and sacred masculine, getting that's true creativity. So yeah.
Great.
I love that.
Excellent.
I always say too, when you release with the full moon, always fill it in with unconditional love. Don't leave the vacuum.
I do in my
that's
classes,
what you were saying.
Visualizing. Exactly. So I love that. And now it's time for Joy on the Fives. So, Lisa, what in this moment is bringing you joy?
I'm in the joy of this conversation for sure. What's bringing me joy? What's bringing me joy? It's so weird. Yesterday I just felt a whole energy shift, and just on August 1st, and I just felt more positive than I've ever felt. Not that I've ever felt, but that I felt in a long time. And just when I have those days, it brings me such joy. And I was like, I don't know, we're switching a month. Maybe August is going to be really good. I'm getting more clients, and they had been a little, stagnant. So I think I'm in the joy of August for some reason right now.
That's wonderful. I love to hear that. The Lionsgate portal's on the 8th.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, right.
And I was just listening to like the whole month of August, it's supposed to be this amazing portal of energy. People aren't getting a lot of sleep right now. My daughter's dog isn't sleeping. I'm not sleeping. Again, to put a positive spin on it, we're charged up and open to this amazing portal that's supposed to be happening. And it always happens on the 8th. So the purpose of the Joy on the Fives, people who are starting to listen to this podcast know my intention is to bring more joy into people's daily lives by their own reminding of themselves to stop and pause for it. Mm-hmm. And so it came through a client of mine, how we get the news, weather, and traffic on the fives, right?
Right.
And imagine the world if joy was included in that.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in the world, or no matter what you're listening to. And so it's just a way to pause every hour or whenever you can, just to say, where am I in joy right now?
I love that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. My, you met Emmett, my Qigong master, one of my best friends. He always says happiness is joy, or joy is happiness for no reason. Yes. Joy is happiness for no reason. And I was like, I love that. Even when things are going bad, you can find joy.
So Emmett, I met Lisa independently, but then you invited me you do the moon ceremonies at a place out in Long Grove, and with this amazing woman, Julia. And Emmett does I can't say that word, Qigong.
Qigong.
Yeah. And he's like the coolest guy. It's just a new way to move my body. So I'm like, I don't know yet if I like this stuff, but I like what he is all about. And I like what he's
an 84-year-old, youngest 84. He's the youngest 84-year-old I've ever met.
Oh my God. I thought you were going to say he was like 64. Wow.
No. Okay. And I have seen him, when I met him, he walked with the King. We did the Artist Way class together. And then he had COVID really bad. He totally recovered through Qigong, and I will do Qigong for the rest of my life. It's like my preventative, but so I've learned a lot from him.
I have to delve more deeply into it. My cousin's really big into it, and it's transformed his life as well. So we'll get back to that. We're going to get back to the regular part of our show.
Sure.
And going back to the full moon stuff.
Yes.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about my chart, or did you want to basically let people know, like, in general, in a full moon, ritualistically, sometimes I'll take a bath and light some candles, tie up some loose ends for us if you can?
Yeah, there are a lot of, I think, rituals, and I bring in, so there's the interesting thing of working with crystals is there are crystals associated with each of the signs. Mm-hmm. So you can dive more into that. I know they're connected to the chakras as well. And you can, a lot of times, like on a full moon, people will say, you can clean your house, you can do a tarot spread, get a message. You can write down your intentions of either what you want to release or what you want to step more into, and then just burn those. For a full moon, we usually burn the intentions. On a new moon, we do a water ceremony where we just take dissolvable paper and put it into water. So there's a lot of different things. You can wear moonstones. You can just kind of go, sometimes just going out and just basking in the glow of the full moon. That's the beauty of the moon, is it affects so many things, but it's also something we can actually see transform in a month. So It keeps reminding us that transformation is always going on and change is always happening. And so you can just go and meditate under it. It's just,
So if this particular full moon coming up, you had mentioned there's crystals for either the zodiac or the moon itself. So for everybody out there who might want to use a crystal or two, do you know off the top of your head maybe what we can use? Or
well, I know the crystals for the moon in general.
Okay.
Okay. So of course there's moonstone. There's also quartz, aquamarine, selenite, sapphire, merlinite, beryl, Beryl, goshenite, and I am not going to say this correctly. Chalcedony, Chalcedony,
Chalcedony.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I have a book, The Encyclopedia of Crystals by Judy Hall. It's a great resource because she takes every crystal and relates it to an astrological sign or planet.
Love that. We'll put that in the show notes below because I sure want to check out that book.
It's a great resource.
Well. Yeah. And I was out in the full moon, I think it was winter time, and I was, standing out there staring at it, and I'll be damned, there was a ring around it. And that Dan Fogelberg song, There's a Ring Around the Moon Tonight, and a chill in the air. And I was looking at the moon and I'm like, does anybody else see this happening? I thought I was a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It was like the brightest, most electric blue around it.
Interesting.
And if you look at it, it's like, at least that's what I always see now, is if you look at the moon, there's definitely a ring around it.
Yeah.
And maybe other people see other colors. You can, shoot me an email, you guys. Let me know if you see other colors. Lauri at customdesignwellness.com. Let me know, because maybe I'm just seeing blue because blue's my color and, my throat chakra is so important in my life. You have to go out and stand on the moon and let me know what you see on the night.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. There is the blue moon when you have two full moons and a moon.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
This is definitely
this was different. Yeah, interesting.
In fact, in terms of the full moon, I know that's when people often put their crystals outside to
that's
charge.
Another good thing. Yes, charge your crystals. Yes.
Yeah, but selenite, I know, doesn't need to be charged. And water, moon water.
Yeah. So if you put water and cover it. So I put it out a couple of days beforehand. And then, like, for people that come to the full moon ceremonies, I give them little blue bottles of that. But you can put a few drops in like an 8-ounce glass of water and just keep drinking that for the rest of the month. So there's lots of different, I forget, the moon water is a huge thing. Yes.
Yeah. I think I learned that from you too. And I didn't know I could sort of like siphon it out through the rest of the
you can put it in your bath water. You can put it in like a glass of water in your room,
No surprise, I lacked the patience, so I just gulped the whole thing down. The next day, I'm like, "Oh, I'm drinking my moon water." so, so I will dribble it out a little more.
So you had an
slowly.
intense couple of days.
That's right, I did. Maybe that's why I wasn't sleeping.
I have another resource for you too. This is, I found this actually in Saugatuck at Mother Moon, my first metaphysical. It's called Isis Blue Moon Elixir. So this might be great for you. It's by Gypsy Goddess, and they're on Etsy. And I'll put drops of water when I put out the water to be charged by the moon. I'll put some of this in there because Isis is really connected to the moon. But it is a blue moon elixir. You might really, benefit from that. So,
well, here's something else about me that you might not know, but I'm also told that I'm from Isis or Hathor or something like that.
Yeah.
I've had readings and people see me with like this big, not horn, but if you look at what she looks like, there's like kind of cow horns.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And like a big moon, big globe over her head. Like that's, she's behind me, probably high. So I have a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to put that in the show notes as well. And then I know that you did an amazing thing for my listeners. And would you like to tell people about, your website, how to find you, and then the special gift that you're giving them?
Sure. So I am offering a 20% discount off of any of my services with a coupon code Real and Woo 20.
Okay.
So we'll put that in the show notes. So my website is futureecho.org. So futureecho.org. And so for any of the services, if you add the coupon code Real and Woo 20, you'll get 20% off. That's just kind of indefinite discount.
And then you're on
welcome.
Facebook, and are you on Instagram?
I am. Lisa the Astrologer.
Okay. Are you starting to do TikToks at all?
No. I am, well, I think it's my Scorpio rising. I don't know. TikTok and those videos, I don't know. I should be.
Don't should on yourself.
Don't should on myself. I'm not at this. I'm not right now. Maybe at some point I will. So
I'm not. Like your daughter's into social media. So if anybody's going to help you do like a little small reel, just as a way to sort of like, hey guys, it's Lisa, new moon coming up. Here's what I'm doing today, but that's just me mothering on you and you don't need my advice. You didn't ask for it. My son, God love him. He's so wise, at his age of 26, he'll present with a problem and I'll go, I'll be like, well, you need to do this, or, how can I help you with that? And he just took a breath once and he just like, I'm not asking for a solution. And I just wanted you to listen. He just really taught me in that moment to kind of just dial myself back, which is, those of you who know me know it's hard for me to just dial myself down, especially when I'm trying to be helpful to others, because it's just who I am. But not everybody's asking for my help. Not everybody in that moment needs my help. And so it really sort of taught me just to sort of just take a beat and ask, are you looking for a solution or you just want me to listen? But in terms of like the TikTok, people have a choice, or the reels that you do, they don't have to listen. But if it brings you joy to do it, or you and Emmett together, I think you guys are just like the secret sauce of stuff. And so together, we're stronger usually anyway. And then you find more courage, especially when you're doing it with others too.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for delivering your gifts to me the many times I've met with you. And, I don't always know it in the moment how amazingly accurate and transformative it will be. But I do write down the dates that you give me and I put them on a calendar looking forward. And I'll be like, you should see my calendar. It's like, pay attention to the moon today, or today is a good day to manifest, or watch out for fortunate encounters. And I'm like, I'm going down the sidewalk, like, are you my encounter? Are you my encounter? And then of course you had asked me like, well, maybe that was the day I heard something come from spirit. Yeah. That was the fortunate encounter.
Yeah.
So I need to remember like those encounters can be from within.
Yes, exactly.
And just sit with that. All right. So Lisa, thank you so much for being with me today. And
thank you.
So much good, wonderful, kind, and amazing information. So thank you very much.
Thank you.